Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bonsai Apprentice. Today I'm going to be working on my Virginia Juniper. The two air layers failed on it, and I'll bring you in and show you what happened with those. And I'll show you a little bit what I'm thinking style-wise once we get that cleaned up and ready to go. So I'll bring you in, check it out, like, share, subscribe, and if you really enjoyed this video, donate to my GoFundMe. And if you feel so inclined, have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll get to them. Thanks, guys. So, as you guys can tell, the air layer 1 and then this back air layer, they failed. And I'll show you why. So, if you come in here, you can see, I'll do this one, it's be easier. But the same thing happened. It never created calloused over. And it's just all the foliage now has died. And all the bark under here is dead. There's no green where I scratched it right there. So, unfortunately, these two died. And I think the reason that happened was because we had a really weird spring here in Missouri. And the tree was not protected. It got snowed on after the air layers were done. And that just killed it. The lack of humidity and other things also contributed. Looking back, I wish I would have... like put this in like a cold frame or something like that, but unfortunately that's just not the case and not what we had. So to start, we're just going to be cleaning up all of the dead foliage in and around the bottom that happens to just die, and then we'll be scraping the bark with a scraper. So I'll come back when I get those things done. So enjoy the montage. All right, so we're back. So you can see how much that really opened up that canopy. And we're looking at the overall structure of the tree. Now what I'm going to do is go clean up the insides here and gin those two pieces. And we'll be ready for some wire and structural work. So I'm just going to come back when we're done. But really what we're looking at is, weak interior growth. Cut that. Make sure it's dividing into twos. All right, so we're back. What I've done is finished out the gin. As you can see, these were the two dead pieces. I connected it to the shari that's here on the inside. And so what we're going to do now is just take this steel wire and hit all the bark, get all that flake off that I've been neglecting to remove. And then what we'll do after that is start to wire the tree and talk about where we want the branches to be, the directions I'm wiring, and why I'm doing it that way. So let me clean that up, and then we'll get to talking about directional branches and pruning. So we have a lot of inside growth. Let me show you that. So lots of baby buds in the middle. I'm keeping those so I have something to cut back to later, especially because I know this will be the apex of the tree. The other thing, this wood is very bendy. Even the gens, very bendy, so I can put the wire and I can harden them in the place I want. There's a lot of inside stuff that was dead when I got the tree, that I just left, and I think I need to remove some of it at minimum to keep a nice aesthetic. I don't think it really adds any value. The other thing is, what I'm facing right now, right here, is going to be the front of the tree. But I'll show you that in a second when we start to get to talking about where we're going to place some branches. All right, so this is going to be the front of the tree here. And because I want to show this gin piece, this shari coming up in the gin, this back shari. These are the branches I was talking about, the gins that I think can be removed. They're in the way, they're unsightly, and they don't really fit the overall aesthetic of the tree, I don't think. So what I'm going to do, this pot's obviously too big now, but eventually put in, maybe a square container about half this size. But really for right now, what I want to do is pull this branch forward. All right, this back branch, bring it around, fill in a pad here. I want to take this apex and I want to whip it all the way down and around, okay? So that we fill in this space, theoretically get it lower than this if I can. Create like a tangine with this framing, this gin, and this shari piece. I'm going to maybe bring this straight down And then these around to the back to fill out in the very back section. So that's the idea. That's the goal. Some of this is going to take some very heavy wire. But for how flexible and how malleable this wood is right now, I think it'll be a-okay just to go ahead and throw that on there and bend it. Then we'll do the fine wirings and the final cutting back and making our flat pads, okay? So without further ado though, we're gonna start wiring these branches. I'm not gonna show you guys how I wire. It's, you know, it's a 2-branch principle, so 2 branches together, about matching size, and then also just, you know, knowing where branches are going to be and stuff. All right, so now that we're done with putting most of the wire on, so I've got all the primary wire on and a lot of the secondary for stuff I knew basically where it would end up and that I needed it. Some of the stuff I left unwired, especially up top, not sure where the apex is going to end up, so I didn't want to wire it and then have to cut stuff off if it was directly down or whatever. So as we position these branches and we move them, I'll have a better idea, better understanding of their general overall position in the tree, and we'll start to build those defining pads. Now, one thing, if you notice, as I tilt the tree, we have a lot of branches with not a lot on the inside for how bushy it is. And so we're gonna have a lot of sprawling pads at the moment with a lot of overlap to fill out. But as we reduce those over time and we get rid of some of the branches we don't have as it fills out and grows, we'll continue to build that ramification and remove branches we don't need. So the first thing I'm gonna do is go and we're gonna move the branches basically where I need them. So we're gonna move the branches basically to where I want them to be, and then we'll start to set those pads and talk about it. So I'm gonna go get the heavy bending starting. It'll be pretty quick, so like I said, we're just gonna start bringing some of these branches down and around. And so as I'm pushing on these branches and pulling them, that's, you know, it is what it is. This one might get guide wired. I want to pull it just a little bit more in than what the wire is currently allowing. So I'm going to take a little piece of wire that I have, and it's nice when you have 2 pieces of wire here. And I got this shari, which is probably what's making this harder to bend. If you have a lot of dead pieces in your branches, they become harder to bend. So I'm just gonna get this, see if I can't get it through this shari, there we go, and hold it. So what I'm gonna do, just support, push, pull, and tighten. And what we'll do is we'll get this as close as I can on the tree. So always pulling, keeping tight, making sure that it's good. So, and then as we work our way, the next branch I want to move is this one. So I want to take this big top apex here, go back, and then come around. So supporting the tree. Let's get rid of that right there though. I don't know why I left that. So always supporting the tree, always, 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 especially on these big bends. So go back, and then come over the top here, around, giving it time to acclimate. And then we're going to come forward, always rolling with the wire. This is why directionality is very important when wiring, right? So if I wanted to take it back the other way, I would have gone counterclockwise. So we went clockwise with this so that we could pull it to the right. And all of this is wired, that's up here is wired to the right so we can move it that direction. Now, I'm looking, and I think it needs to come back a little bit more, down lower. Give it some more direction. And then, there we go. Take it even, what I'm gonna do too is take it back, and then we'll bring it back up and around, keeping that directionality with the tree. So we've got a nice little curve in that branch now. It's looking really nice. As you can see, looking at the front of the tree like there, obviously very bushy. We're gonna come and we're gonna clean all this up, you know, as we move along and understand where branches are gonna be better. But you can see we're already starting to frame this dead wood and just break it up just a little bit, all right? Not a lot, just a little bit. And obviously as we pull this down, create our apex, cut back. Like I said, I didn't do any of that knowing that we didn't know where this was all gonna be positioned. And I don't think that's a problem. For me personally, that's not a problem. When you're looking at your tree and trying to decide, okay, what do we put and where? I don't think it's a problem to have to do it in little steps, in little increments, right? So it won't be a finished product. It's not gonna look perfect, but we are gonna be in a good position going forward to know what this tree is gonna need, okay? And that's really what this tree today is about, is setting that foundation step, okay? So now, when we're looking at the front, we've got this branch basically where we want it. We've got the top where we want it. Now we need to figure out, we need to pull this back branch here across to give us some more depth. And then we need to start figuring out where we're gonna place these other branches that are very large to the side. Now, those other branches to the side, very important branches, because if we don't have them, the tree's gonna be very off balance, all right? So we need to build that shape, that form, but also keep in mind that we need to fill out the tree where we need to be, okay? So the first step is gonna be to put something back in this area. So I have two branches that are coming off this one. They will start to form a very good pad eventually, but I'm thinking I'm gonna take this branch here and bring it into this area as well, and we'll bring some of the apex down and into that area too, okay? So what we'll do is we'll pull this back in, pull this around, and we'll have filled out this space, generally speaking, and then we'll be able to use these two to fill out the spaces back here, okay? So I'm gonna whip this first. We wanna come down, always supporting the branch, come down and in with it. Always supporting the branch, always, okay? If you don't support the branch, there's a good chance you break it, and that's when you start to run into problems, okay? You start snapping branches and having to figure out, plan other plans, okay? But always if you just support the branch, you're less likely to snap, especially if your wiring is good, okay? So what we'll do too, we'll bring this one down as well. But I think I'm gonna just take this probably pretty close to just out the back for now. And then we'll bring these, of course, down and out too. All right, so if you're looking at the front of the tree now, okay, obviously very bushy, very shaggy, but you can see that we start to fill those spaces. So some of this apex stuff, when I bring it back, bring it down, back behind, we'll start to build that branch structure back here, okay? If you're looking from this side, we have a lot of open space here. That's where these are gonna come and fill. All right, so now that, you know, we have a good idea of where things are gonna be, where things are gonna be positioned, I'm gonna finish out this wiring. For the most part, things are where they're supposed to be, and we'll just be setting that wiring structure and the groundwork for the future. All right, so now that I've got all of the branches placed roughly where I want them, what I'm gonna be doing is going and just pruning back into that shape that I initially want and setting it, finish cleaning off everything on the bottom that's now abruptly hanging down, and we can get all that cut off and start to get this tree really into shape, really into form. Obviously, won't be a finished product, but we could do a lot of good work and get this tree really cleaned up, the pads really outlined. And then I'll show you guys the against the wall here. And so hopefully you can see a little bit more of that definition without distractions going on behind it. So right now it kind of just looks like a mess, and it's still gonna look like a little bit of a mess, but hopefully when we start taking these tips off, it's mid-July now, so I had to think about the date. It's the 12th, so it's mid-July. So this tree has a lot of growing time to continue going this summer. So I'm not really upset if, you know, it starts to push new growth, or some of this stuff in here that we're leaving that might be hanging down or potentially removed, but that'll be the back branches in a couple years for these nice foliar pads. The other thing I want to say is there's a couple places where I want branches that if we don't get, I have cuttings of, and these are from last year, and it's the same plant. So these cuttings are growing, they've produced new shoots, so I have the potential to continue to propagate and either scion graft or approach graft when the time comes, if the tree in the next year, 2 years doesn't give me what I want. That's looking way far down the line though, so let's go ahead, get this tree cleaned up, max as much max refinement as I can get, cut back to the proportions I want, and we'll show you some of that process. All right, so if we are looking strictly at this first branch coming out, right? So we want to take anything that's growing straight down off, which I've done already for the most part on this branch, just so I could use it. But what we want to do is these tips that are growing, we want to come back and remove these tips, so that in the coming months, these stronger tips here, we take out that oxytocin. In the coming months, these back buds here will start to get healthier, elongate. They also will continue to get healthy as the tree is exposed to sunlight and these inside branches get that light. Okay, so lots of light penetrating. These will get continuously stronger and grow. Get continuously stronger and grow, and we'll be able to continue to push this inner foliage to a higher degree of health to fill out these pads. As you can tell, tight internodes on a lot of this. Very nice juniper and what we want to do. So by removing these edges, just like that, we're pushing that back budding in. We'll start to create denser pads, and then that'll allow us in the future to create more and more out of this. Okay, so we're kind of just doing that with the whole thing. We'll look at another pad here. So again, this one's fairly full. I have foliage hanging down that needs removing. Come in, take it out. That's simple. Okay, so we'll be doing that too all along this. Okay, so I'll do that as an example. But same thing, these strong tips, come in, take a little bit of it out. That removes that oxytocin, will force back budding. This tree is healthy, so it doesn't need any more elongation. The branches inside will continue to be healthy. Okay, eventually this will become 2 pads. For now, it's just one giant overlapping pad. So that will also be coming down the line potentially too. So that's the goal with this entire tree. Continue to make the pads. All right, continue to put motion in the branches a little bit, and then we're going to start to reduce this over the course of the growing season and the coming years. Okay, so I'll show you a time lapse of that and working this whole thing, and then we'll come back. All right, so we're back. So you're looking at the new, right about there will be the new designed front for this tree. Like I said, this groundwork really, it needs a lot more stuff to happen. When I got this tree, it was very laggy, very out there. It's already come in quite a bit. And over the coming years, as this ramifies, it gets smaller and more compact, I think it's gonna look better. I didn't remove a ton of foliage, as you can tell. It's not the best time of year to do such a thing, but I did remove all those really long tips. So we will start to focus on this back budding and really start to pull this in. I wanted to talk a little bit about, okay, well, if I didn't get the branch I wanted or necessarily a good branch, where were some of those spots I wanted to talk about? And one of those spots is in the back, right in this section. I would graft into this main side branch here, coming towards the back to create a back branch if I don't get one. Or if I don't get enough padding from the two other branches that I pulled back. The other thing I would like to do, same idea on this main branch that's coming around right in here, I would like to graft as well so I can fill kind of this space if I don't get something. Now I can always bring these down. This will be the new apex region and it really will take off. So I'm hopeful that in another year or two with another styling, this tree will come a long ways. Like I said, you're looking at the front right about there. So this pot's obviously way too big for this tree. And this pot obviously is not, it's glazed, it's not necessarily the best quality, and especially for a tree like this, but it is in a great substrate for this tree right now. It is an Akadama pumice mix with just a little bit of organic soil to hold some of that moisture. Here in Missouri, we do get hot, so that's also why it's mossed, just to keep some of that moisture in as well. So it's been humid, it's been sunny, it's been hot. We've broken this heat just a little bit here in Missouri. So this tree's really come a long way. And in the next couple years, will continue to come a very long way. Like I said, it needs a lot of work. But for a first year tree, this tree is, in my opinion, come along quite nicely. Like I said, I'll show you more of a close-up, and hopefully it'll help you see some more of those pads when I'm not sitting behind it. But I'll grab my other two junipers, which those are Chinensis junipers instead of Virginia, but they perform and act in a very similar manner, I've noticed. So I'll just show you the other two, my windswept and then my cascade style, and just show you the difference of 2 or 3 years worth of work that goes into a juniper, and how very, very quickly after, 3 growing seasons, you can have something fairly decent in your collection just from some nursery stock. I got this last fall, and like I said, I just took some cuttings off of it. I didn't really do anything with it. This spring I tried to take 2 air layers off. They failed. I got some nice gin work out of it. So you can really take a piece of material like this that's nursery stock, and with just trial and error in a couple years, create something really good. So here's the windswept cascade. As you can see, it's very bushy right now. And that's just because of all the summer growth it's put on. I mean, it's full, it's beautiful. The pads are really coming alive. So it's almost time to go back in and even rework this so I can start to put it back into shape. But you can just tell, last year this tree looked like that one. So with nice fertilization and just continuing to do these techniques, your trees will continue to blossom and grow. And after something like 3 years, which is what this has had, you can really start to see pad definition, foliar pad definition, and distinction between all of the pads and how they are working together in this tree. So, it's obviously these have a long ways to go. The ramification has a long ways to go. Some of the branch structure I want to do on it has a long ways to go. But you can just see in 2-3 years of putting in work and effort into a tree, you can take something that, you know, for first styling is very shaggy, very long, and you can get it compressed into something very manageable and very aesthetically pleasing. This is one of my favorite trees. The windswept is slowly but surely becoming one of my trees. Sure, after I get in here and rewire and rework, which will be another video coming soon, that, you know, this is gonna become something very nice, very beautiful. And so if you're first styling, you know, I see a lot of videos where they say it's the first styling, but you can tell it's already been wired, all right? Or it's already been coiled and cut back multiple times to create some of that pad density that you don't know if you're gonna use. So there's just multiple ways to approach it. There's no right or wrong way. I think just the most important thing when working with your trees is knowing how healthy they are and the extent of work you can do to them. Especially for something that can use cuttings or grafting, I recommend taking some of those before you do some of this work. Just make sure you have some of those on hand so you can start to replace foliage if you need to. All right, so the tree's new perceived front, somewhere right in here. So you can see I've got 2 pads there, a pad here, work in here, pad there. What will become the apex when it starts to fill out. The other thing is a lot of this foliage is drooping. So it's not oriented itself up yet, but it's not growing downward. So this has nothing on the bottom here, but because of how it's facing. And in a couple weeks when it's reoriented itself, these tips will start to go up towards the sun instead of curling back, or these ones curling back will be replaced with something else. The other thing to mention is that I could thin a couple of these branches more, but because I want eventually more pad density in these, I did not take that approach. I'd rather them elongate out and extend out to create more pad in the future. So as we turn it, you can see the new gens that we get. You can see the new pad definitions, the heavy and lots of wire. The lack of back budding and dispersity in these is where I'm concerned most about, and that's why we've been cutting back these tips. So hopefully we get something back here, or at a minimum we can start to just pad out this and have to use other techniques to get these closer to the trunk. But I am hoping that we do fill out and get fuller as we move. This is a big empty space just so you can see the deadwood, but this branch will eventually help fill this area. So as we keep turning, again, you see floppy foliage that's not growing down, but just not oriented up yet. As we continue, you can see the large holes in the back here and here that eventually will need to be filled. And as we continue to turn, you can start to see the side of the apex that is unkept, but will continue to grow as well. So more pad definition here. 2 branches that maybe will need to be removed with not a lot, but I'm trying to keep as much as possible on this tree. So there's a decent chance that they recover and come across. More padding, more foliage density. Like I said, some stuff's hanging down, but it's not necessarily, it's not necessarily growing down. So things like this are coming off the sides, haven't oriented themselves up yet, and will become the future backbones for cutbacks and other things of that nature. So overall, this tree is done really, really well. It'll get a lime sulfur job here in another couple weeks. Once this deadwood really dries out, we can come back and lime sulfur over again. So that's all for this video. I hope you all liked it. Please like, share, subscribe. Leave any comments or questions that you have down in the bottom, and I will try to answer them and get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks everyone for watching, and sayonara.